In England, club football is the dominant sport.
That is magnificent!
It's not just a sport though. It's the way of life, it's the culture, and to some, religion. And just like everywhere else on the continent, there are big clubs, and then there's everybody else. No matter the kit colors, history, or trophy count, one thing commercially massive clubs have in common is that they're all located within a major city center. This is common knowledge. The more people there are in an area, the more support a specific club receives, and over time, the club grows to be more popular than the rest. Pretty straightforward, right? This applies to the big 6 clubs in England. Arsenal, Chelsea, and Tottenham, along with Manchester United, Manchester City, and Liverpool, dominate the viewership in the English Premier League. All 6 of these clubs are located in 3 major cities: London, Manchester, and Liverpool. Each one of these locations is ranked 1st, 2nd, and 5th respectively in terms of most populated urban areas in England, 2 of which are home to 5 of the 6 big English clubs. But wedged in between London in the southeast and the 2 hubs in the northwest sits Birmingham, the 2nd biggest city and the 3rd largest urban area in the country. The city is teeming with millions of inhabitants while being steeped in history and culture. It has the population and attractive qualities, but why doesn't it have its own big club? To understand this, we need to explore the rise and fall of clubs in the area who fail to be competitive, dissect the impact of the Premier League revolution in the 1990s, and look into Birmingham, the city itself. There is one club that stands out above the rest though, and if you can't already guess it, stick around to find out which one. If you end up learning something new from this video, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to this channel, as it goes a long way. Let's dial it back a bit. Like many places around the UK, Birmingham was once a hotbed for industry following the Industrial Revolution. Its location helped port cities like Manchester and Liverpool connect with London, the financial hub of the country, which allowed for an abundance of people as well as goods to pass through the city centre. This was made even more prominent when England built up its railway network. The city specialized in metal manufacturing, so it had plenty of factory workers that were eager to play football once it started to become popularized in the 19th century. Just like the rest of the UK, the sport became an obsession with the local population. Fast forward 100 years later, and football is now established. A handful of clubs came and went, but only a few became a staple in or just outside of Birmingham: Aston Villa, Birmingham City, and West Bromwich Albion. Each of these clubs found success in their own ways in the early 20th century, and that's what football was like back then. Every team had some sort of chance to win something, unlike today where it feels like very few clubs have that opportunity. Birmingham City FC have never won the league, but on 2 occasions they've won the League Cup, the second most important single elimination tournament in the country. Not quite as notable as the FA Cup though. Then you have West Brom, who've won just 1 league title, but that was over 100 years ago. The club has also won the FA Cup 5 times and the League Cup just once. Now bear in mind, the FA Cup is the oldest single knockout competition in the world, and hundreds of teams throughout the English football pyramid compete in it, even the semi-professional clubs. So winning it, especially several decades ago, was a huge deal. Also, if you're a fan of these Birmingham-based clubs, or any football club in general, and you're looking for gear to represent your favorite team, Fanatics has you covered. They offer club-branded merchandise for teams based in the Premier League, La Liga, the MLS, and much more. Find everything from jerseys to training gear, or even casual clothing like hoodies and hats. The options are endless. I'll leave a link at the bottom of this video, so be sure to check it out to find what you need. Lastly, you have Aston Villa, a club that's far and away the most successful one in the West Midlands. They've won the top division 7 times, the FA Cup 7 times, the League Cup 5 times, and they're also holders of the prestigious European Cup, which is what the Champions League is today. Coventry City and Wolverhampton Wanderers also deserve a shout out since they're staples in the West Midlands who've each had their moments. We now know that Birmingham and the surrounding area isn't some desert lacking any relevant football clubs. There's a ton who've had moments of their own, just like the clubs in London, Manchester, Liverpool, as well as the rest of the country. So why is the region missing this huge commercial giant that we all see in England's biggest cities? To some degree, they already have one, but it depends on your definition of a big club. If there's any team in the region that were to come close to matching the Big Six's global attention, it's Aston Villa. Prior to the 90s, Aston Villa had a similar trophy cabinet as Man United, and their European Cup is something that clubs like Tottenham and Arsenal are still looking to win. So what's missing? The club obviously has their credentials and the local support, plus the city of Birmingham can just about compete with Manchester and Liverpool when it comes to attracting top athletes. Now I will dive deeper on why the city is at a disadvantage, so stay tuned, but in relation to sporting reasons, there's a few key factors that have gone against Villa. One of them is timing. The emergence of the Premier League in the 1990s brought out a seismic shift in the football landscape, transforming the sport into a global spectacle with immense financial implications. The infusion of wealth into the top flight of English football enhanced the gap between Birmingham's clubs and the newfound powerhouses. Aston Villa, one of the founding members of the new breakaway league, found it challenging to compete with the financial juggernauts that emerged in the Premier League era. Despite a series of top 10 finishes in the Premier League, Villa failed to truly sustain any form of success. From 1991 to 2016, they hired and fired 11 managers, and during that same time when the Premier League status was growing exponentially, Villa's ownership was a revolving door, so the club never really found any stability. This lack of stability restricted Aston Villa from having any chance to gain immense exposure to the billions of eyes and pounds the Premier League was attracting. Meanwhile, during their struggle to escape mediocrity, the powerhouses of England that we know today began to make their mark. And all while this was happening, Birmingham City and West Brom experienced sporadic success and struggled to maintain a consistent presence at the top tier. If any club from that city were to ever make an impact on a large scale, it'd still be Villa. At this point, the economic disparities between Birmingham's clubs and the newly minted giants of the Premier League became glaringly apparent. Aston Villa, once a financial force in its own right, continuously found itself outmatched in the race for marquee signings and top-tier talent for the majority of the Premier League era. And within this time frame, more big clubs developed and imposed themselves in the top portion of the table, whether by strategy or significant financial support. But it gets worse. Villa's fortunes only continued to plummet after being relegated in 2016, the first time since the Premier League's inception. Just like any other club, the relegation did zero favors for Villa, who went on to spend 3 seasons in the Championship where there's a fraction of the money available compared to the Premier League. Combine this with the club's inconsistent performances in the top flight, along with minimal silverware, mediocrity prevented Aston Villa from growing into a commercial giant, while clubs from London and the Northwest captured the imaginations of fans around the world, within England, and even in Birmingham. Aston Villa returned to the Premier League in 2020 and have stayed there ever since, but the damage has already been done. If anything, it further enhances the reality that despite how competitive football is in England, the riches of the Premier League feeds off of the handful of clubs at the top. This might not be news to most fans, and with how UEFA and the Premier League's financial rules are laid out, most clubs are facing a significant uphill battle when trying to compete with the biggest spenders in the world. This gap in wealth within football will only continue to grow in the coming years. A fraction of it will be down to the success of the club, but in this day and age, you need more than just trophies to disrupt the almighty and powerful within the sport. Take a look at other clubs in the entire Midlands. Wolves found success in the 50s, Derby County enjoyed the 70s, Notts County inspired Juventus to take on their colours, Nottingham Forest have a European Cup, and even Leicester won the Premier League during the best possible era. But none of that makes any difference for sustainability if you don't spend. It confirms what everyone already knows. The Big Six is just a simple way to separate the financial giants of English football with the rest, despite the rest having a history just as rich, if not more, than those with all the power and sway. Some of those clubs earned it through their history, others not so much. And for the clubs in Birmingham to miss out on growing to the same level as Arsenal, Man United, or Liverpool, they'll have to get a bit of luck thrown their way with an owner who's willing to invest. Just look at Newcastle and their newfound competitive nature. It's only a matter of time before their wage bill begins to reflect their performances year over year. But why haven't Aston Villa attracted an ambitious owner during their time in the Premier League, especially when you consider the numerous occasions the club has changed hands? I'll dive into the club's current ownership soon, but the city of Birmingham is partly to blame for Villa longing for the right owner. It's no secret that football has evolved into a predominantly profit-driven enterprise. Fans may not appreciate this shift, but owners and players definitely do. Football clubs today serve primarily as avenues for product sales or as tools for enhancing the status of their owners. And outside of trophies, a club's success hinges on its annual revenue or the financial backing from those at the very top. Part and parcel of that includes commercial deals, broadcast revenue, and matchday income. Historically in the Midlands, clubs have typically struggled to capitalize on global or national product sales, which affects how attractive they are for potential sponsors. Even though Premier League television revenue is fairly distributed, most Midlands clubs miss out on the money from European games. And not to mention, their stadiums are relatively small compared to others around England. These are just some reasons why Villa, along with other Midlands clubs, have collectively faced challenges attracting the right wealthy investors. Let's compare Manchester and Birmingham, two cities with a similar metro population. It's always going to be challenging keeping up with Manchester United ever since the 50s, but why was Man City chosen by Sheikh Mansour in 2008 to become the next football powerhouse? He chose the club because it had a large modern stadium that was well financed, plus the name Manchester was globally associated with sporting success. Birmingham made attempts to enhance its global image, such as bidding for major events like the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics, but both bids fell short. Meanwhile, Manchester won their bid for the 2002 Commonwealth Games, boosting the city's profile on the global stage. The city of Manchester has also developed notable attractions that have outpaced Birmingham when it comes to tourism. Plus, the northwestern city currently has 103 kilometers of light rail, while Birmingham has less than a quarter of that. Simply put, the infrastructure within Manchester makes for a better opportunity for investors than Birmingham, and that's reflected within Sheikh Mansour's acquisition and possibly why we have yet to see results of the same magnitude coming out of the West Midlands. Regarding football, responsibility for the struggles around the city lies with the decisions made at club level over the last several decades. The failure to not only capitalize on the global interest in the sport as well as the city's large population has hindered its progress and it's fallen behind other English hubs. It's a missed opportunity to promote the city and enhance its brand. Competing cities like Liverpool and Greater Manchester have leveraged football's economic contributions and cultural prestige for regional development. Birmingham's current image is not favorable, and the absence of football success has diminished the potential for city branding. But it's not impossible to bounce back, particularly for Aston Villa. The club could soon have their turning point, like the Saudi Public Investment Fund taking over Newcastle, Sheikh Mansour going all in with City Football Group, or Roman Abramovich acquiring Chelsea. One invested owner can make all the difference, and the club may have found the right ownership model, which makes Aston Villa a sleeping giant. In 2018, American businessman Wes Edens, along with Nassif Sawiris, Egypt's richest person, acquired a 55% stake in Aston Villa, and as of today, they own 100% of the club. Their combined net worth is around $12 billion, making them wealthier owners than those who run Liverpool and Tottenham, two commercially successful clubs. Under this ownership, Aston Villa have received loads of debt-free capital and are planning on increasing the capacity of Villa Park. On the field, the appointment of Unai Emery in October 2022 has helped put the club ahead of its expectations while dominating its opponents at home with the likes of recent investments in Moussa Diaby, Pau Torres, and Yuri Tielemans. The position on and off the field that Villa find themselves in is a recipe for success. That being said, just because you have a wealthy owner doesn't mean it'll translate into relative investment towards the club, and a sizable investment in the club doesn't automatically guarantee success. But success is far more likely to be achieved when you have all the tools Villa possess. Could the club be on its way to being a consistent top half side, or even better, a regular participant in Europe? The city of Birmingham is certainly desperate for notoriety of this magnitude, and the runway for Aston Villa's renaissance is as clear as day. Whether you think the club will stay competitive for a short time or a long time, let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to sign up for Mapify's Patreon, where you'll get mentioned in the credits of YouTube videos, regular updates for all long-form content from this channel, walkthroughs on how I make maps, as well as early access to videos. And as always, give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and don't forget to subscribe.